Hey there, and welcome to the A.D.K channel, and I am here with the wonderful Richard and Nick from the amazing band of Concrete Gods. Hey guys, thank you for joining me today. How the hell are you doing?
Okay.
He's always so full of confidence.
I know.
Yeah, we're good.
Enthusiasm there.
There's some definite Friday feeling just around the corner, but it hasn't quite hit us yet.
You sound like you're raring for the weekend there.
I'm very much so. Yes, this has been a barnstorm of a work week, so I'd like to spend a couple of days forgetting that I have a real job.
I think that's the idea of music, isn't it? Just to forget about the fact that you actually have to go back to work on a Monday, get the weekend, enjoy your music, enjoy what you can, and put all of that into the back of your mind.
Yeah.
Right, let's go into some detailed questions. Now, we have, of course, spoken. It was about 8-9 months ago when we first met at the Metal to the Masses. So we've got a little bit of detail, but for those that didn't watch the Metal to the Masses episode where we talked a little bit about the band, there are two questions that I obviously love to get always covered off. And the first one is the background history of the band. So kind of just give us in a few minutes, 30 seconds or whatever you want to do, where the band came from, how it's formed, and of course we always want to get a coverage of the band name. Just for those that haven't watched it, where did the band name come from and the meaning behind it? Who wants to go on that one?
No, please, be my guest, Nick.
Okay, right. So Of Concrete Gods came out of the usual band naming argument where you've got five blokes generally chatting away over WhatsApp, having started to make some music and realising that you're not quite sure what everything's going to sound like. But we knew that, especially at the beginning of the band, we knew that there was going to be an element of heaviness to it. So we wanted something that felt like it had weight, and Concrete has weight.
Right.
and then it was just about, I think I threw in the idea of Children of the Concrete Gods, which is just way too gothy. So Paul, our drummer, edited it down, and he's a big fan of an ellipsis. So
okay,
let's start with an ellipsis, and then we ended up with Of Concrete Gods, and then anyone can just stick anything on the front that they might want to.
Fair enough. And so we've got it down that the band formed in 2018. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
So how did this group of guys come together to form Of Concrete Gods?
So it's lots of old connections and current connections kind of all merging together at the same time. So me and Rich used to be in a band called Dead Next Week that split at the beginning of 2018. And me and Boulder, one of our guitarists, we've been in a couple of bands. We used to have a band called The Awful Truth. We got to the Metal to the Masses final back in 2015, and before that we were in a band called Third Law. And we'd always talked about doing more work together anyway. So when Dead Next Week split up, I talked to Boulder. He happened to be putting a project together with Paul the drummer, and Paul the drummer is also in another band with Simon, the other guitarist, so pulled him in, and then I looped back around and pulled Rich in as well. Yeah. So by the end of 2018, we had a 5-piece and we were starting to knock stuff together properly.
Okay. It is very much that Hertfordshire scene of the incestuous bands that are all kind of all part of each other, and someone's in someone else's band. And it's probably one of the reasons for low gig turnout, is because whenever someone's got a gig on, everyone that could turn up for a gig is playing a gig somewhere else in some other band.
There is that, yeah. Exactly.
Unfortunately, it's the true case.
Exactly. And we're all, old as fuck, so we've been knocking around for like 20 years, making music in various bands. So eventually you've just played with everyone, so you just start figuring out who are the people that you really enjoy being in bands with, and just try to form a. Yeah, one of the great things about this band is we've just got 5 people who are all relatively egoless. So it's really nice to just get in on a Sunday, make some music, have a good time. I don't think any of us have ever had an argument, which is nice.
That's nice.
No. We've never argued once, I think. It's a love fest.
Absolutely, absolutely.
It's a love fest of music, of friendship, of banter, having a laugh, and it's definitely the easiest band that I've ever been in to work with in terms of just the musicianship and just the vibe, the atmosphere of all of it. It just works.
Right. So let's talk about some of the musical elements. So you've got the first couple of kind of releases you had, which was Obsidian and Good Samaritan.
Yep.
Great tracks. You can hear. I mean, you can hear the obvious influences that you can see from the classic of the Black Sabbath. So you've got the Alice in Chains vibe in there, the Stoner vibe, Down. There's a whole host of bands within that kind of that sort of genre. I'm a big Corrosion of Conformity fan. I can also hear elements of a bit of Crowbar in there, so you can hear all of these different elements, and it sounds amazing. They are some great tracks. And then we last year went in a bit of a different direction, and I'm going to get you to elaborate about that change of direction, where that came from. Is that something that's going to continue going into this year, or are we going to have a return to the heavier stuff going into the next sort of releases? But the ones that then came out with things like Hate to Say, the man from Tallahassee were a much more chilled back. Reminded me of like the Seattle band Days of the New.
Oh yeah, lovely.
Okay.
Great band, because they were again very grunge orientated, but they didn't play heavy instruments. It was all acoustics. But had that grunge feel. So whenever I listen to those tracks, I could just get taken back to my Days of the New albums. Talk to me a little bit about why there was that big change. What happened there? What was the reason behind that?
I'm genuinely chuffed you brought up Days of the New. Days of the New are one of my favourite bands of all time.
They are awesome.
Interesting pop culture fact: the Green album of Days of the New, all of the female backing vocals were Nicole Scherzinger from the Pussycat Dolls.
Really? I did not know that. Okay, fair enough.
It's bonkers. She was about like 15, 16 at the time, and was friends with the lead singer, so she got to do all the backing vocals. It was her first ever recording.
Gonna wait for that to come up on a pub quiz somewhere. That's gonna come up someday.
So there's kind of 2 elements for us taking the acoustic direction last year. Last year and the year before, really. The first was something that me and Boulder had always talked about over the last 10-15 years. We're both massive fans of like the Unplugged sessions that the 90s bands all did, and really like the Jar of Flies and Sap, the 2 Alice in Chains EPs that were very stripped back, and we'd always talked about doing something like that. And then at the beginning of this band, it was something that we started throwing about with the other guys, and everyone in the band fucking loves Alice in Chains, because if you don't love Alice in Chains, you're not a human being. And also
don't talk to Andy about that. He doesn't know who Alice in the Chains are, so it's a bit of a worry.
That's fine. We'll have words. But me and Paul Behrman, the drummer, we've also talked long and hard about like Neil Young, the godfather of grunge, both massive Neil Young fans, and he's got a lot of excellent acoustic work in his back catalogue as well. So we always knew we were going to do something acoustic at some point. We didn't know it was going to be as early as it has been, but what happened in sort of late 2020, while COVID was all raging around, Paul, our drummer, got taken into hospital. They thought it was COVID. There was lots of tests done. Turned out he actually had leukemia, and he had to go through like a year of chemo and radio and all of that. Not fun stuff.
No.
So as the world kind of reopened in 2021, and it was possible to go out and do gigs again, it was possible to get back into practice rooms properly, but we knew we were going to be without Paul for at least a year. It turned out to be more like a year and a half. We were like, well, this is the time to do it. We don't want to bring in another drummer to sit in his seat, because it's his seat, and if we don't fill the seat, then it feels more positive that he's going to return to it.
Yeah.
So we spent first part of 21 really writing songs, second half of 21 recording them with Tim over at Signal House, and then that turned into the EP that we dropped out last summer, and it was all very fortuitous because it happened to fall at a time when I really wanted to write some lyrics that were a little less angry and a little more hopeful. So yeah, it kind of worked. Like I say, it derailed the original plans. Good Samaritan and Obsidian were the first recording sessions for what was supposed to be the first EP.
Right.
But COVID hit literally like 2 weeks after we managed to get Obsidian finished, and then that first time they opened up in late 2020, there was about a month when people were allowed to do stuff in like September, I think it was.
Right.
We just snuck into the studio and got Good Samaritan down as quickly as possible, and then the world locked down again, so we could at least release that in 21. So those songs exist, and that kind of segues into future plans.
Okay, so before we get to the future plans, firstly, so the drummer, how is his health now?
Mostly good. So in terms of, I mean, the leukemia, it's not something that goes away.
No.
It comes back in and it goes into remission. It comes back in, it goes to remission. As long as he keeps up with medication regimes and looks after himself in terms of food and diet and lifestyle and all of that fun stuff, then he's generally good.
Good.
The last few months, all of his results have been really, really positive from the hospital, and he's been back playing with us since May last year.
Okay.
So literally by the time we got to the point where we were ready to release, he was back drumming again. So he played a few shows of this over last summer and autumn, sat out some of them, played most of them, and then he's been involved in the writing sessions we've been doing since October.
If I recall correctly, I think his first time back was actually Metal to the Masses.
Yeah, I think
that was his first gig back. Yeah,
that was his first gig back.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we really, because we had all of the acoustic EP written without any drums at all, because we didn't want to have any kind of digitized drums on there, or someone else desperately trying to play the bongos badly. I think we decided that we weren't going to have anything there and just keep that as the blank space.
Yeah.
And then just before the Metal to the Masses gig, Paul was able to play again, so we got him to play play along with it to add that extra drums side of things.
That's it. Yeah. And I, over the last 8-9 months, obviously we've been writing new stuff for this year, but it's been interesting reworking those acoustic songs for the live show with Paul, because some of them still stay quite stripped back, with Paul just adding as and when necessary. Some of them have become that more of a Jar of Flies hybrid, where like Boulder's playing acoustic and Simon's playing an electric lead with some heavier drums, and Man from Tallahassee, which was originally intended to be quite a heavy song, we've managed to explore that space so that we can play that in a very, very different way. Right.
Because I was very intrigued to see how that would have been taken through, because obviously when we spoke at the Metal to the Masses, I was already aware of what I was going to expect on that night, but it's a very odd experience to go from like an acoustic setup and then you throw in a heavy song or something like that, and you're kind of like, why is the rest of the set, if you don't know what's going on, you don't understand why the rest of the set's not heavy. So how has that been throughout the end of last year, playing these shows where you're playing these more stripped back songs and then throwing in some of the heavy, like Good Samaritan, you're throwing in that track as well, and then what's been the reaction to it? How's it felt? What changes have you made within the set to kind of make it all kind of flow more naturally?
Sure. So I mean, sometimes like we've just not approached it. We did like a release show at HMV in Luton for the EP last September. So we just played the songs as stripped back as possible, just in a corner of HMV. So that was quite nice. We did a set at the Castle in Luton, as it's hometown, where we played 2 sets. So the support slot was us playing the acoustic songs, and then we played a heavier headline set, which was quite nice. But also when we've had the opportunity to play like a larger set, so a perfect example is Serverfest, which is another Luton festival that goes on in July. So we played that July last year, and we had 45-50 minutes to play with rather than half an hour, which meant that we could start the set with some of the heavier sort of rockier stuff and then slow down into an acoustic jam in the middle and then end big as well. That felt like a really good set, and it went down really well. It's nice to have the strings to the bow so that you're not limited to doing one or the other. You can do a bit of both, or if it's a shorter set and there's some kind of restriction in place, we can drop back to the acoustic stuff.
Sure. So that's always
good. It's always good in case MTV ever bring back MTV Unplugged.
Yes.
Exactly.
Because we're available, guys. Yeah,
we are. I mean, I understand that these days it'd be a weird reality show where we're playing acoustic shows while also people are fantasizing about our large buttocks. But,
or following us around with a camera all day.
Yeah, I feel we can pull that off.
I think it'd be more like playing acoustics than running an assault course where someone fires targets at you and you win money if you manage to get to the end of the course whilst playing the song.
I'll be down for that.
Yeah, exactly. Sounds like a fun night.
Or like it could be like Squid Game, where if we play the song wrong, we die.
You die. There you go. There'd be no musicians left in Hertfordshire at that point.
I don't think I'd be able to survive a set, or possibly the first few bars of the song.
I was going to say it's going to be who's the first person to go out. Then it's going to be a race on that point in half our bands. Okay, so let's get to the final topic then, which is 2023 plans for the band. What's on the agenda for you guys?
Sure. So we've been writing.
Awesome.
We do like writing. We are back in Signal House Studios with Tim Kramer for the last 2 weekends of February, so
right.
Not long now. The intention to get down 3 songs of varying newness. So one of them is pre-COVID. It was part of the original set and was always going to be recorded alongside Obsidian and Good Samaritan. And then we've got 2 fairly new songs. Well, one very new song that we started writing about October last year, and then one song that me and Rich started writing about 10 years ago in a previous band, and it never really fit that band. So we've resurrected it and changed it around a bit and made it suit us as a band. So yeah, we're going to try and get all 3 of those songs down at the end of February. With an intent to release over the summer, like the previous EP, but we'll bundle them with Good Samaritan and Obsidian, so we've got another nice little 5-tracker that we can put out on CD alongside the individual digital releases.
So it will definitely be an EP, because I know some of the bands that we've spoken to are doing singles releases throughout the year. That's the direction they've decided they want to go down to. Some people want to do a full album because they want to. And we've actually talked about it, Andy, Kirk and myself, and Kirk quite likes the idea of the single releases because it keeps people something to come back to throughout the year. I can't stand that idea. I like the album release because I'm one of these people that goes, if you give them a song, they'll listen to it for a while, but then they'll move on to something else, and they've only got that one song to really listen to, and they're going to get bored of that and move on to other tracks they want to listen to. Give them an album, they'll absorb that whole album. and they'll either commit to you and be really into it, or they'll just not. The album won't be what they're after. With a song, if it's not the right song on the album, you may not get that person.
See, I do agree. However, I think with the attention spans that people have these days, with like TikTok being, you know, what it is, and, you know, people's attention spans just generally being shorter because everything has to be snappier. I think if you throw a 45-minute to an hour album at someone, unless they really get into it, I mean, the first song will get a listen at most. If you hit them with, here's a song, and then here's another song, and then here's another song, from a point of view, is you might get more people listening to one song and then they'll listen to the other ones, or, you know, you get a bit more. There's a bit more opportunity for someone to actually hear what you're doing and maybe pay attention, and then go back to listen to all the other songs. Especially if you release them as a single and then you release them as an EP, they can then, if they missed out on some of the songs, they can listen to that on the full EP, right? That's the way I kind of.
It is true. I think there's going to be. We had such a significant change a few years ago where with streaming. Streaming was one of the biggest changes in music.
Yep.
Then in 2020 with lockdown, we had one of the biggest changes about how people viewed music videos, because people couldn't do them in the big studios anymore. So suddenly home-brewed music videos and music videos from home, because the big artists were doing it, became the accepted norm. So we've seen music videos have changed significantly, and now what we're seeing this year is this significant change in the way that bands are just not planning to release albums as much. They're kind of doing, well, we'll drop several singles, and then we'll drop 4 singles, and then we'll drop the EP as the 5th single, and that will have all the other 4 on it, and they'll do it that way, and that way they've got constant traction for the year. I don't think anyone quite knows what's going to work because of the, as you say, the short attention span is a challenge. And I've already heard people going, we're not going to be doing music videos this year, we're going to be doing 60-second shorts of music clips to keep people's attention. I'm like, you can't digress a song into 60 seconds. You can't do it.
That's taking it a bit too far. Yeah.
But they just want a short snippet of what their bands are like. Lorna Shore are going to be doing lots of these sort of little snippets. I don't get that. I think the music video for me is something that's really important still to tell the story if you do it well.
I think if we were to do something like that, if we were to release 60-second snippets of our songs, people would miss the other 12 and a half minutes of
the song.
normal length songs, you know.
Yeah. Well, you're getting into significant Doom territory at that point. We fundamentally can't write short songs.
No, we can't. Well, I mean, to be fair, like the 3 new songs that we're going to record are only averaging at about 8.5 minutes each. That's almost a single length,
that's
right?
Snappy.
Yeah. That one. You're into stoner groove at that kind of that tempo. You're all right. You're okay. It's when I did it. Me, Andy, and Kirk did an album review of a band, and it was 3 songs, and the album length was 42 minutes, and it was just 3 songs of the EP. And I'm like, It's 22 minutes long, this song. I can't do it. I'm like, I can't do Funeral Doom. It's Funeral Doom for 22 minutes is just depressing. But I don't want to do those anymore. Okay, very final question. And I love to ask people this at the moment. What are your guys' thoughts about the Pantera reunion?
Okay, so I mean, straight off the bat, I'm going. I'm going to go hit one of the European festivals over the summer so that I can catch them. I think there's a lot of very, very strong opinions about something that maybe isn't as big a deal as everyone's making it out to be. Is the opinion that's probably going to get me shot by someone. No pun intended.
Oh.
I just realised on that one. We both hit the same point at the same point.
Yeah, exactly. At the end of the day, the way that Zach and Charlie have been presenting it is perfect, which is that they've said from day one, right up until now, that it's simply a tribute to Pantera to allow new fans and old fans an opportunity to see those songs live. it's not a Pantera reunion in their eyes. It's just this is just a tribute. Now there's the added complication of having Phil involved, and Phil's shaky ground. But I mean, he's been in recent years he's been fairly contrite about that. And he's made apologies, which is a very un-Phil thing to do in the first place anyway. So yeah, I'm okay with it, and I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Fair enough.
Like I say, Zach, if there's any guitarist in the world to stand on that stage, then Zach Wilde is that guitarist. And Charlie's a fantastic drummer. Well, Charlie's a better drummer than Vinny was, so it's it's good. That's always going to be better, so that's okay. Yeah, I can understand why people might not want to go and see it because of the Phil problem, and that's perfectly fine. I can understand why people don't want to go and see it because they feel like it's, doing a disservice to the brothers, and that's fine.
I think that was probably the one where we got, because I remember doing a reaction to the very first live performance to it with me, Andy, and Kirk, and I said I don't know how I felt about it. I said technically it all sounded great, they played really well, so I said I didn't have a problem with any of that. I said, but something didn't sit quite right with me, knowing how that when Vinnie Paul died, he had no intention of ever doing anything with Phil. And I know that everyone's argument was always, well, the Vinnie Paul estate are happy with it. I'm like, yeah, but that's not Vinnie Paul, though.
No.
If Vinnie Paul was alive now, he would not be doing this. Unless I could change. But that's always what's sat in the back of my head.
Yeah, you could equally argue that Phil Anselmo's been doing Pantera songs with the Illegals.
With the Illegals, yeah.
For a long time.
Very true.
So he's just playing the songs that he was always playing on. The way I look at the reunion, I think it's more of a tribute. If they had put it out there as tribute, I don't think there'd be half as many people being, sore bummed about it.
Yeah,
because it's a tribute, not a reunion. And
not having a massive Pantera sign on the top of the stage. It could have been a tribute to Pantera.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
We'd have been fine. I'd have been like, no, that's fine.
I wasn't really down with it up until I saw the videos, and then I was like, damn, actually, this is really good.
It sounds good.
It does look good, though.
Yeah, but that's entirely the problem, is that, the guys on the ground, the guys on the stage, we're always referring to it as a tribute. The guys in the marketing teams, and the guys running the festivals, and the guys in the press are the ones going, oh, reunion, blah, blah, blah. And
Pantera.
And it fans the flames. I mean, at the end of the day, like I said, for me, I get to fulfill a dream somewhat. I've managed to see Phil and Rex playing in Down, which is fantastic. I managed to see the brothers playing in Damage Plan, which was fantastic, but I never got to see Pantera. I'm still not going to get to see Pantera, but I'm at least going to get to see a Pantera tribute band that is better than, Pants Terror playing down the horn in St. Albans.
Well, that's the other group. That is the other group of people that I found that have an issue with this. Are the people that saw Pantera in their heyday feel that they're having their badge of honor taken away by all these people saying that they've now seen Pantera, and they're like, no, you haven't.
Yeah, but
you
never got to see Pantera.
You saw it in the heyday. You're fine. It's good.
Yeah. Exactly.
Remember
remember
that.
You still have that badge of honor.
We're not taking that away from anyone.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually in half the cases when you look about what they played, how they played in the heyday, how they're actually performing now, especially Phil, sounds a hell of a lot better than he did in his heyday, because his voice, it was all over the place.
It's the same as the Guns N' Roses problem,
Yeah.
Guns N' Roses live, the best Guns N' Roses live band was the one that only had Axl Rose in it, because that was a band that wasn't smacked out on heroin all the time.
We laugh, but it's true, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, you look at footage from Guns N' Roses back in the early 90s, and they were a shambles.
Yeah.
But that's the Guns N' Roses that everyone wants to see, and thankfully nowadays they almost get to see that.
Not far from it.
It's not far off. No, it's
not far. Excellent. Well, there we go. We wrapped that up with a random conversation about Pantera and Guns N' Roses. But Anyway, best of luck for this year. I will hopefully see you at some point, or the rest of the ADK guys will also see you guys on the road at some point. Look forward to the new EP, whether it's an EP or if it's a bunch of singles. Let us know. We'll be just checking them out on the channel.
Absolutely.
And thank you for joining me on the channel. This is an ADK video. This is of Concrete Gods, and thank you very much for watching. Take care.